praises, honor, and glory unto Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Also want to give double honors unto the apostles, the bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect, as well as the Akim out there enduring this truth across the four corners of the earth, teaching and preaching through the spirit of Yahweh, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, in truth and sincerity. And just wanted to get into a quick lesson dealing with a few articles that I ran across that kind of jumped out to my eye. I'll pretty much read this one right here. As you can see, it says the EU is now pondering fuel rationing as war continues. And when you get into the article, um, it's not saying that it's needed at this moment, but more so in a preparation for it, as we'll see. And as I seen this one, and then I seen this, a pound of ground beef now costs more than the federal minimum wage, and also this one as well. South Florida gas stations are reporting gas shortages as prices continue to increase due to Iran war. So you could just see people, the mentality, the mentality that's changing amongst people, and really realizing the times, that's coming, and the times that we're in with the world. You can't just relax as it used to. There was a time when what was I seen it was a video, and they was kind of showing like a old VCR type tape or something of how things was during the 90s and things of that nature. And you could just see people outside relaxing, chilling and enjoying life in a sense. All right. You don't really have that now. Okay. As the brother was saying the other day, a lot of people, and I remember reading that article as well, as far as going on vacations, a lot of people be staying home. You ain't got the money or the mental capacity or the time to really go on a vacation. you know. I was just telling somebody, earlier today, it's like, nah, I know we kind of be doing this and wanted to do this annually, but it's just not on my mind right now. And the main reason, of course, is just tightening up through the spirit or in the spirit, as well as the camp, and just trying to get better, trying to get better on the daily, man. So I'm going to get into this article and grab a few precepts through the spirit, and Lord willing, you're edified. So as you've seen the title already, speaking about pondering fuel rationings, and it's more the mindset that I like, It says a quiet warning has begun to echo through political corridors, the kind that doesn't spark immediate panic, but lingers long enough to unsettle. Behind measured language and carefully chosen words, officials are now acknowledging a possibility that once seemed unthinkable: fuel rationings. It's no longer dismissed as alarmist speculation. Instead, it sits firmly within the range of all possibilities, a phrase that carries more weight than it first appeared. Why? Because of prophecy is unfolding. Through the Spirit, the apostles on down, we have been speaking about these type of times. Things getting harder, getting rougher, getting tighter. People not going to be enjoying life as much. And it's due to prophecy. If you see, Nero 47, he's pretty much going out throughout the earth, making sure that all of them hate the whore. Speaking of that whore, being America, that whore that sits upon that dragon, all right, which represents the NATO and the EU. Okay, pretty much what we have here is, like I said, him making sure these nations hate them. He's kidnapping leaders. He's bombing schools. He's starting wars. He's threatening allies. He's putting tariffs on allies. So he's pretty much going about doing what he want to where he roused up Iran, man. And hey, as the scriptures say, he's like a wild boar. It's almost like they was waiting. They couldn't wait. They had that I wish a nigga would spirit, And that's it's just like you poked at the bear and they sending this and it's crazy because the song be stuck in my head too. But they making these AI Lego videos pretty much scoffing, you know, scoffing DJ Trump, man. So it just goes to show you that we are in those type of times. All right. As they saying, these things is carries more weight than it first appeared, acknowledging a possibility that once seemed unthinkable. That's because we're in those type of times, man, where people are going to have to adjust their economy, their lifestyle, all right, question their belief, their faith, um, families, all right. The Lord said He set at variance, you know, nation rising against nation, which we'll get in a minute. So we're in those type of times, man. It says the concern is not rooted in a single crisis, but in a coverance of pressures. That's what it is. Global instability, strained supply chains, and a fragile balance of energy markets have combined to create a situation where certainty is slipping, and that's what it is. Not just like it's one event, but there's events happening affecting other events, and predominantly with this war and this oil not going out as much as it used to, and a lot of countries speaking about energy crisis. All right, because you need that oil to become fuel to uh, pretty much sustain the society that we're in, because everything is ran off machines in a sense, and predominantly for what? For mass production. Okay. It says governments are being forced to plan not just for what is likely, but for what could happen if multiple systems falter at once. Fuel, the lifeblood of modern economies, have become a focal point of that anxiety. All right, because you need fuel for transportation. Let's look. Let's see. Definitely, transportation was probably gotta be at the list, at the top of the list. I mean, it has to be, And as it says, the largest sector, fuel is modern society is primarily used for transportation, as far as gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, electricity generation, coal, natural gas, and heating buildings. Beyond energy, petroleum is a vital feedstock for manufacturing plastics, chemicals, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, and synthetic materials. So it, a lot of it is when it's refined and it's getting to these different forms, it's utilized for all of this, you know. All right. Like I said, synthetic materials. Let's see. Let's go. Let's see if it has anything. Let me see. Synthetic fibers, polyester, nylon, acrylic, plastic, which, high performance polyester, Teflon. So all of these different type of things, it's man-made, and as you notice, it's a lot of plastic, and a lot of BS material, so to speak. But to them, it doesn't matter. As long as they can make $1 off of it, they'll sell it to you. They'll put it on your bed sheets. They'll put it on your clothes. They'll fucking put it in your foods. You know, you got shit with the forever chemicals, and they just don't care. So we got transportation is the largest sector. Got road transportation, transport, aviation, and shipping. This is your imports and your exports. You know what I'm saying? As far as all of this gasoline, because that's what's going on with here, with South Florida. It's not actually that they're uh, running out of gas, but it's more so the high demand for it is not. They can't get the trucks out as high as the demand is. So it says behind the scenes, fuel distributors say the issue is not a true shortage of gasoline, but a logistics problem made worse by consumer behavior. Demand has spiked as drivers rush to fill their tanks, worried that prices will keep rising or supplies could tighten further. So, one of these articles mentioned panic buying, you know, and that's what you have a lot of people doing. You got, yeah, here it goes. Say industry experts and officials are urging calm. They emphasize that Florida has not experienced a widespread fuel crisis and that these disruptions tend to be short-lived. When panic buying eases and deliveries catch up, most stations are expected to return to normal operations within a day or two. So that's what it is. People are panic buying. Oh, let me fill my tank up so I can get it while it's still a little bit cheaper, you know? Why? Because we'll go ahead and grab this real quick. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 8. And it says, all these are the beginning of sorrows, right? Which I'll probably read up. I just want to get this definition first. When you go into the sorrows, it says what? The pain of childbirth, travail pain, birth pains, intolerable anguish, in reference to the dire calamities precede the advent of the Messiah. So certain things are going to be happening upon this earth before Yahawashi returns, before the second coming of Yahawashi, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, because that's what his disciples had asked him. All right. It says here, let's go to 3. It says Matthew 24:3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? And Yahawashi answered and said unto him, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am anointed, or Christ, and shall deceive many. And you do have a bunch of people that follow weirdos. I mean, I'll just say it like that. You know, there's been some people who's actually considered themselves as the Lord, and then some who have a group of followers and are deceiving many. You know, it says, verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So, and that's what we have now. There are wars and rumors of wars. Part of the rumor is a third world war. You know, people are starting to speak of it a little bit more than before, right? And it'd be amazing because I'd be at work and people be like, man, and this, and man, we might go to war. And, you know, they be joking and scoffing about, you know, certain people being drafted based upon their age and everything. And people talking about, well, if we make it to this year or that year. So this is part of those pains, man. Those birth pains. All right. The Lord is showing the world that dang, I always forget the name. What is the name of it? Oh man. Contractions. You know, I always forget it. You know, but let me double check. Yeah. Why would it do that? No. Let me see. It says contractions are the tightening and relaxing of the uterine muscles to push the baby out, typically feeling like intense menstrual cramps or abdominal pain that radiates to the back. It says true labor contractions increase in frequency, and that's what the world is going through. Strength and duration, lasting 30 to 70 seconds, 5 to 10 minutes apart, and do not stop with rest or movement. You know, so what you'll have is those contractions start to happen, and it's the child is ready to come out. All right, the woman is ready to give birth. All right, and that's prophecy at the end of the day. You know, these contractions will happen, and the earth will feel these birth pains. All right, as a woman that travail, and you'll start to, well, the world is starting to consider, okay, this life, and consider their goals and consider their future. Some are optimistic about it and think that things will go back to normal. And some are pessimistic about it, and think that hey, they got the right mindset. They think that this the end of the world, you know. And I'm speaking more so of those who are not in the know. All right, we understand that's exactly what this is, you know. But it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Now, a lot of this is with this oil situation could definitely cause that. Well, let's get the next verse. It says, all these are the beginning of sorrows, because you'll start to see shortages. All right, especially like with people panic buying, and with the fuel trucks, not able to move as frequent. That'll definitely cause a shortage. In ancient times, it's like it had happened to the point where it's not raining, so there's no crops, you know. But in these times, it's like with this oil, boom, that just disrupts many things, as it said in this article. Where was it? Um, yeah, the concern is not rooted in a single crisis, but in convergence of pressures, right? And that's what's happening, you know. So, matter of fact, let me get back to this article. It says officials insist that there is no immediate need for drastic measures, yet the very act of preparing for rationing signals a shift in tone. Contingency plans are not drafted lightly. So basically, they're starting to become more serious about preparing for rationing off fuel. Okay. Um, Yeah, it says they emerge when the margin for error narrows, when leaders recognize that even unlikely scenarios must be accounted for. In practical terms, rationing would mean controlled access, meaning you might fill your tank up now once a week or whatever. So I can, or you might go at a certain time. You might go on a certain day when you paid. Well, if you have controlled access, you'll go when they allow you to go. Prioritization of essential services. You got your police cars; they should be first, and your fire trucks and ambulance, and it'll probably be those that are transporting goods. All right, this will cost companies a lot too, because now you have to pay more for the gas. The gas going up, you have to pay more for your goods and services to be transported. All right, so call all YAHAWASHI, man. It says, and a stark reminder of how dependent daily life is on uninterrupted energy supplies. Let me 1 second. What's up? What's up? I'm doing a lesson. Okay. No, that's cool. All right. Okay. Bye. It says, for the public, the idea carries an almost historical weight. Fuel rationing invokes memories of wartime austerities, of cues and limits of a society forced to adapt overnight. And that's the thing. Things could just happen just like that. You know, I did want to get one more not preset, one more paragraph within here. Maybe it wasn't in this one. Yep, it is. It says, let me go here. It says a single disruption can ripple outward, exposing vulnerabilities that had gone unnoticed. In that context, preparation becomes less about expectation and more about resilience. There is also a broader question beneath the surface. How prepared are modern societies for sudden constraints? For decades, abundance have been the norm, and systems have been built around the assumption of constant availability, and that's a mindset thing. As the Lord said, be as pilgrims. You can't get like you can't get into the mindset that everything is gonna be all good forever and ever, as we know. But that's the society mentality, because they feel as if they can just go to the store whenever, and that's where the panic buying comes in at, storm coming. Hey, that's what happened normally when meteorologists tell them about storms. People will go straight to the store and start emptying the shelves, man. All right, start stocking up. All right, what about when that storm comes and it never passes for the most part, you know? All right. Um I mean, you see this. This is another one. It's pretty much saying, at a point in time, somebody making minimum wage, they could still get ground beef and be able to, have food. But ground beef is more than a pound of ground beef is more than the minimum wage. But so here we have it. Okay. Oh, better yet, here. So this is Second Ezra 16 and 36. It says, "Behold, the word of the Lord. Receive it. Believe not the gods of whom the Lord spake." And I wanted to get that because you have it to where it comes down to the mentality of certain people on this earth. People are believing in whom the world calls Jesus. All right. Well, I'll say they are believing in Jesus and expecting a white man to show up. And with that comes certain energy. With these false gods, all right, and false deities, it comes a certain energy. Okay. And like it says, in ancient times, if they was having problems, they would go to their gods. They would go to their astrologers and their prognosticators and certain things that they worship and pray unto them and sacrifice unto them, that they can receive that they can receive the benefits of that God or that deity. But only YAHAWASHI can save anyone out of this. All right. It says, "Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bring forth her son with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment." Right? So now you're going to we're starting to get to that point where it'll get frequent, and I'm not saying right now as in today, tomorrow, but they're starting up. The water is being broke. All right, there's no slowing down. There's no turning back from here, I would say. The Lord, we on the Lord's time. But since I want to say since the CVID situation, the Lord every year he been turning up, turning up, turning up. You know, and things just been getting worse. More and more people are starting to realize it. That's why you have a lot of people crashing out. All right, it says, "Even so, Shall not the plague be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it on every side? O my people, hear my word, make you ready to thy battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. And it's a spiritual battle, mental battle, could get physical. It depends on uh ultimately how the Lord guides you. All right. But best believe before things get too chaotic, even us, there's gonna be a trial of our faith. And we gotta trust in YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI within that, you know. All right. That's hey, straight gates, man. Can't forget about the straight gate. Broad is the way that leadeth unto destruction. All right, that's the way that most the world would take, the easy route. Okay, but the Lord said we got to enter into the straight gate and walk that narrow path. All right, so having that pilgrim mindset, you know, uh, shoot, money's gonna get tight. You might lose your job. Tension within your households. Okay, whatever the case is, but you know, like the scriptures say, attend upon the Lord without distractions. All right. Things like that happen. You just gotta, pray up on it. Seek counsel with the brothers, of course. Brothers helping each other. It's gonna get to that point. I remember Elder D-Mash said that years ago, and it stuck with me because it's like, yeah, you're gonna have some brothers who not gonna be working, and you might be the only brother working. You know, you might have a big enough house for all the brothers to be in. All right. But at the end of the day, whatever your lot is and your walk is, just, continue to do it within faith. Okay. I just want to get this part real quick. It says, he that selleth, let him be as one that fleeth away, and he that buyeth as one that will lose. He that occupieth merchandise as he that hath no profit by it, and he that buildeth as he that shall not dwell therein. He that soweth as if he shall not reap, so also he that planteth the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes. They that marry as they that marry as they that shall get no children, and they that marry not as a widowers, and therefore they that labor in vain. Because it's saying don't get too tied up in these things and having a sure future within them. You know, had a mindset of a pilgrim. All right, because the Lord is bringing judgment upon this place, and nothing's gonna last. It said all the elements and the works therein shall be burnt up. You know, like we have families, we have jobs, we have our business or whatever, our daily things that we go through and go to, but don't get comfortable in it, you know. Don't get comfortable. It's just like 2020, man. One day the world was running, the next day the world was shut down in a sense, you know. It says, for strangers shall reap their fruits and spoil their goods, overthrow their houses, and take their children captive. For in captivity and famine shall they get children. So time's gonna get hard and get rough, man. Time's gonna get hard and get rough. But it's like the Lord said, you know, in 24:8, with these things going on, these are the beginning of sorrows. That's why we're still able to go to work. We're still able to go to the store. All right. We're still able to have lights on, still able to have internet connection. All right. But these are the beginning of sorrows, and with it being the beginning of sorrows and being related to birth pains, meaning it's going to increase and intensify and get worse eventually, you know. And hey, salvation is nearer than we believe, man. All right. Um. So let me go ahead and close it out on this. Is it 17? I think it's 17. Con. This is Jeremiah 17:7. It says, "Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord Yahawah is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit." So through the spirit of YAHAWASHI Yahawashi, we gotta, keep our trust and our hope in YAHAWASHI Yahawashi when whenever these calamities come about, man. He said his servant's gonna eat, servant's gonna drink. All right, he's gonna give them shade. He's gonna his name is gonna be a strong tower unto them. So that's where our mindset gotta be at and be focused on is trusting in YAHAWASHI Yahawashi. All right, and that we can overcome those things and not be taken in it. I believe that second Ezra is the 8th chapter. Okay. So with that, Lord willing, you was edified, and Lord willing, we allowed to endure unto the end. Once again, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahawah, BAHASHAM, Yahawashi, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Shalom.